Captain Ilara Voss gripped the armrests of her command chair, the hum of the USS Reliance engines vibrating through the deck like a distant heartbeat. The bridge felt like a fragile cocoon under soft blue lights and holographic displays, too confined against the vast void beyond. Her crew, 3 hand-picked souls forged in unyielding grit, moved with practiced efficiency around her. Lieutenant Marcus Hale, the wiry engineer whose perpetual smirk concealed a razor-sharp mind, tapped furiously at his console, rerouting power to the shields. Beside him, Dr. Lena Kieran, the xenobiologist whose calm facade hid a fierce protectiveness, monitored sensor sweeps with narrowed dark eyes. And then there was Jax, the burly security chief, pacing like a caged wolf, his massive frame dwarfing the tactical station. "Captain," Hale said without looking up, "the Kaelon fleet's closing in. They've got us bracketed, 3 cruisers minimum. Our diplomacy channels are still lighting up with their demands." Ilara's jaw tightened. Humanity had extended the olive branch for decades, ever since first contact with the Kaelons soured. Endless negotiations, concessions, treaties that crumbled to dust. The Kaelons, with their crystalline ships and unyielding hive mind tactics, viewed humans as primitives meddling among the stars. But after the raid on New Horizon Colony, thousands dead, resources stripped, Earth's Council had finally drawn the line. No more talks. The Reliance spearheaded that shift, a sleek corvette built for speed and surprise, not grand battles. "Patch me through," Ilara ordered, her voice steady with a quiet resolve that had earned her command. She was the anchor, always pushing forward against stacked odds. The main view screen flickered, revealing Admiral Vexer's angular face, his multifaceted eyes gleaming with synthetic arrogance. "Human vessel," Vexer intoned, his voice a chorus of echoes. "Surrender your cargo. Your species' interference ends here. The cosmos bends to the Kaelon accord." Ilara leaned forward, unflinching. "Admiral, we've broadcast our recall of the treaty. New Horizon was our people. Your raid crossed every line. We're not surrendering. We're leaving." Static rippled across the feed as Vexer's form glitched in irritation. "Primitives. You abandoned diplomacy at your peril. We will extract compliance." The channel cut, alarms blaring. Hale cursed under his breath. "Incoming fire, plasma lances. Shields at 80%. Jax slammed a fist on his console. "Let him come. I've got point defenses hot." His cautious side showed in double-checking targeting arrays, but his coiled muscles screamed readiness. Ilara's mind raced. The Reliant was fast but outnumbered. Their mission: scout the nebula ahead, map safe routes for the human Exodus fleet fleeing Kaelon space. But with the nebula's turbulent gases scrambling sensors, escape meant threading a needle in the dark. Hale plotted a dive into the nebula. "Lena, what's our read on those clouds?" Kieran swiped through her hollow display, fingers steady despite the ship's shudder from the first hit. "Electromagnetic interference is off the charts. It'll scramble their locks, but it'll fry our NAV systems too if we're not careful." "We go in blind, Captain." Ilara nodded, decision's weight settling like lead in her chest. "Blind it is. All hands brace for evasive. We're not dying out here, not today." The Reliant surged forward, engines flaring as it plunged toward the nebula's swirling maw. Purple gas tendrils whipped past the hull, bridge lights dimming under the onslaught. Hale's smirk faded to grim determination as he wrestled failing readouts. "Holding course, barely. They're following but slower." Jax growled, firing countermeasures that bloomed like fireworks in the void. One Kaelon cruiser veered off, shields sparking, but the others pressed on, relentless. Kieran glanced at Ilara, voice low amid the chaos. "This nebula's a graveyard for bigger ships. If we make it through, it'll buy us time, but what then? The fleet stays behind." Ilara didn't answer right away. She watched the view screen, the nebula swallowing them whole, stars twisting into light smears. Humanity's grit had carried them this far, camaraderie forged in losses fires. But as the Reliant bucked against ionized storms, she wondered if cleverness alone could outrun an empire's wrath. The cost mounted, a grazed engine nacelle venting plasma, crew stations sparking. They were deep in the unknown now, and the cosmos was about to learn what humans did when pushed too far. Elena gripped the armrests of her command chair, the hum of the bridge vibrating through her bones like a distant storm. The view screen flickered with the alien blockade, sleek Vexery cruisers arrayed in a perfect lattice, their energy shields pulsing like predatory eyes. Her crew had pushed for diplomacy one last time, broadcasting terms from the United Earth Accord. The response? A curt dismissal, laced with that smug Vexery arrogance, as if humans were still upstarts begging for scraps. "Captain," Liam said from the science station, his voice steady but edged with caution. He adjusted his glasses, eyes fixed on sensor readouts. "Their formation's tightening. If we don't maneuver soon, they'll box us in." She nodded, forcing her mind to the tactical display. Liam was the thinker, always calculating odds, weighing risks like a merchant balancing scales. It grounded her, that caution, even if it sometimes felt like chains. "Options, people. We came here to break this siege on Epsilon Outpost, not play tag with their fleet." Kira leaned against the bulkhead, arms crossed, her grin sharp as a vibro knife. The sergeant had a way of cutting through tension with sarcasm, her dark hair tied back in a practical knot that matched her no-nonsense vibe. "Diplomacy's dead, Cap. Let's go kinetic. I've got charges prepped in the torpedo bays, modified with those EMP bursts you like. Hit their shields from the flanks, watch 'em scatter like roaches." Elena considered it, the plan they'd hashed out in the ready room. A feint toward the blockade's weak point, using the asteroid field for cover, then unleash the EMPs to disrupt their cohesion. Simple human ingenuity at its core, no fancy alien tech, just grit and precision. But the Vexery weren't fools. Their ships outgunned the UNS Vanguard 3-1, and Epsilon's colony was running low on air recyclers. People down there were suffocating under inaction's weight. "Execute the feint," Elena ordered, her voice cutting clean. "Helm, plot evasive to Sector 7 Alpha. Engage at half impulse." The ship lurched as thrusters fired, weaving through the belt's drifting rocks. Alarms blared softly in the background, a reminder of the stakes. Liam's fingers danced over his console, fine-tuning the cloak they jury-rigged from scavenged parts. A human trick that bent sensor waves just enough to blur their signature. For a moment it worked. The Vexery formation hesitated, their lead cruiser pivoting sluggishly. Kira whooped from her station. "See? They're dancing to our tune." But then the sensors lit up like a supernova. "Incoming fire!" Liam shouted, his comm fracturing. A Vexery destroyer had anticipated the move, slipping through the asteroids on a parallel vector. Plasma bolts streaked past, one grazing the Vanguard's hull with a shudder that rattled Elena's teeth. "Shields at 82%, Kira reported, already punching overrides. "That bastard's got our number." Elena swore under her breath, slamming the comm engineering reroute auxiliary power to forward deflectors. "We need that EMP volley now." The plan unraveled too fast. The asteroid field, meant as cover, now trapped them. Chunks of rock exploding under crossfire, debris pinging off the hull like hail. Liam's face paled as he cross-referenced scans. "Captain, their command ship just deployed drones. Small, fast, they'll swarm us before we can recharge." She stood, pacing the 2 steps to the central holodable, where the battle unfolded in glowing lines. The Vexery thought humans weak, reliant on words over weapons. But Elena had seen colonies burn because of that misconception. No more talking. "Kira, target the destroyer's engines. Liam, find me a gap in their net, anything." As the Vanguard twisted away from another barrage, Elena felt the weight of it all. The crew's trust, the colonists' lives hanging by threads. The feint had bought seconds, not minutes. If they didn't adapt, the cosmos would claim another human ship, another lesson in humility deferred. Elena gripped the armrest of her command chair, the hum of the ship's engines vibrating through the deck like a distant heartbeat. The view screen flickered with static-laced feeds from the outer sensors, showing the hulking silhouettes of the Vexery dreadnoughts closing in. Her crew, Jackson Engineering, Mira at Tactical, and Old Doc Hale patching wounds in medbay, waited for her word. No speeches now. The betrayal was fresh, the alien council's olive branch revealed as a noose. "Shields at 80%, Mira reported, her voice steady but edged with the strain of rerouting power. Mira was the cautious one, always double-checking trajectories, but even she had argued for this gambit when the talks collapsed. They're hailing us again, Captain. Same frequency. Elena nodded curtly. Ignore it. Jax, how's that jury-rigged emitter holding? From the intercom, Jax's voice crackled through, laced with his usual wry bite. Like a charm, Cap. Or what passes for one in this scrap heap we call a ship. The gravitic pulse generators sync to the main drive. Fire it up, and it'll scramble their formation for a good 5 minutes. But if we miss the window, we won't. Elena's fingers danced over the console, plotting the vector. The Vexery fleet, 12 strong, had blockaded the neutral relay station where humanity's envoys had gathered. Diplomacy? A farce. The aliens had promised shared tech for peace, then turned their guns on the human delegation mid-negotiation. Half the envoys gone, the rest scattered. Now it was just the Resilience, a mid-tier explorer vessel, against the Armada. Stakes didn't get higher. Lose here and the core worlds fell next. The ship lurched as the first Vexery volley skimmed their hull, energy blooms lighting the void like false stars. Alarms wailed, red lights pulsing across the bridge. Elena's heart hammered, but she kept her eyes on the tactical overlay. Helm, evasive pattern Delta 7. Mira, target their lead ship's ventral array, non-lethal if we can manage it. Myra's hands flew, but doubt flickered in her eyes. They're too tight, Captain. One wrong twitch and we're vapor. Jax chimed in again, his tone sharpening. Vapor's better than surrender. Remember Epsilon? They glassed the colony after the handshakes. Fire the damn pulse. Elena made the call. Do it. The emitter thrummed to life, a low whine building to a screech that rattled Elena's teeth. On the view screen, the Vexery formation buckled, ships veering wildly as artificial gravity fields clashed with their inertial dampeners. One dreadnought spun lazily into another's path, hulls grinding in a shower of debris. Chaos human style. Windows open. Mira shouted, unleashing a barrage of kinetic slugs. They punched through the lead ship's shields, crumpling its array in a burst of plasma. The Vexery vessel listed, communications fried, buying them seconds. But the respite shattered. A secondary Vexery cruiser broke free, its weapons locking on. Elena felt the ship shudder under incoming fire, bulkheads groaning. Damage report. Port nacelle breached, Jax yelled back. Losing thrust, rerouting, but we're limping now. Elena's mind raced. The plan had been to slip past, reach the relay, and broadcast the truth of the betrayal to the galaxy. Expose the Vexery's duplicity, rally neutral factions. But with the nacelle hit, they were a sitting duck. She glanced at Mira, who was already compensating, sweat beading on her brow. Options. Elena asked, voice low. Mira swallowed. We could vent the cargo bay, use the debris as a screen. By time to jump. Jax snorted over the line. Or I overload the auxiliary core, make a mini-nova. Scare him off. No suicides, Elena snapped, though the idea tempted. Grit, not glory. That's what humans brought to this mess. Ventral thrust only. Hug the relay shadow. Mira, sync with station defenses, whatever's left. The maneuver was brutal. The Resilience dipped low, engine straining against the pull of the massive relay structure. A skeletal web of comm arrays now pocked with Vexery scars. Debris pinged off the hull like hail, and Elena caught a glimpse of frozen bodies tumbling in the wake. Station crew caught in the crossfire. A Vexery beam grazed them, shearing off a sensor pod. Sparks flew on the bridge, Doc Hale's voice cutting in. Casualties minimal, but hurry it up. I've got shrapnel in places it shouldn't be. Elena pushed the ship harder, weaving through the relay's arms. The Vexery pursued, but the structure's automated turrets, human-designed, ironically, swiveled to life, peppering the aliens with warning shots. One dreadnought recoiled, buying them distance. There. Mira pointed. A docking arm half intact. Clamp on, transmit from inside. Elena nodded, committing. The grapples fired, latching with a metallic clang that echoed through the frame. Safe? No. But alive for now. The broadcast buffer filled. Footage of the betrayal, logs of the false promises. Hit send and the cosmos would know. As the signal beamed out, a Vexery corvette closed fast, weapons hot. Elena unstrapped, grabbing a rifle from the locker. Arm up. If they board, we make them regret it. Jax's laugh was grim. Diplomacy's over. Time for the real talk. The dim hum of the auxiliary engines vibrated through the deck plating, a constant reminder that the Endeavour was limping, not flying. Captain Elena Reyes gripped the armrests of her command chair, her knuckles whitening as she scanned the tactical display. The Krell Armada loomed on the edge of sensor range, 3 cruisers, sleek and predatory, their energy signatures flaring like distant stars about to go nova. They hadn't fired yet, but the blockade was tightening, a noose of alien arrogance around the human colony ship. "They're hailing us again," Jax muttered from the engineering console, his fingers dancing over holographic controls. The wiry engineer shot her a sidelong glance, his usual smirk tempered by the sweat beading on his forehead. "Same old song, surrender the drive schematics or become space dust. You want me to patch it through, or should I just vent some plasma their way for fun?" Elena shook her head, her dark hair pulling tight against her scalp from the recycled air's dryness. "No games, Jax. Not yet. Mira, any luck on that backdoor into their comms net?" Dr. Mira Voss hunched over her station, her cautious eyes narrowed behind augmented lenses. The scientist's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted a neural interface, fingers weaving through streams of code that flickered like fireflies in the void. "It's layered. Their encryption's adaptive, like it's learning from our probes. If I push harder, they might trace it back and lock us out for good." She paused, biting her lip. Or worse. The plan had seemed solid back in the ready room. Slip a virus through the Krell's diplomatic channels, the ones they'd left open in their smug certainty of victory. Humans had tried talking first, endless cycles of envoys and treaties that crumbled under the aliens' demands for the colony's fusion tech. Diplomacy abandoned, now it was survival. But the virus, Jax's clever little beast meant to scramble their targeting arrays, had fizzled on deployment. A Krell countermeasure, no doubt, turning their own signal against them. Now the Endeavour was blind in one sensor quadrant, and the colony pod trailed behind like a fat, helpless target. Elena leaned forward, the weight of 5,000 souls pressing on her shoulders. "We don't have the luxury of, or worse. Jax, reroute power from life support to the forward emitters. Buy us time." Jax whistled low, already complying. "That's gonna make the air taste like recycled socks. But hay beats dying with fresh breath." Lights dimmed along the bridge, consoles flickering as energy surged. The ship groaned, a metallic sigh echoing through the corridors. On the view screen, the lead Krell cruiser edged closer, its hull iridescent under the nebula's glow. A behemoth carved from asteroid bone, weapons pods unfolding like blooming thorns. Elena's mind raced through contingencies. Evade into the gas clouds where sensors failed. Ram the blockade with the pod as bait? No, too many lives. Her father's voice echoed from training sims, "Grit wins wars, not guns." Humans didn't have the biggest fleet, but they had stubbornness forged in a cradle of dust storms and endless nights. Myra's console beeped urgently. "Captain, they're powering weapons." Full spread aimed at the pod. Elena's jaw set. Evasive pattern delta. Jax light him up with the decoys. The ship lurched as thrusters fired, twisting away from the incoming barrage. False signatures bloomed from the Endeavour's flanks, ghost ships, holographic phantoms Jax had jury-rigged from spare emitters. Beams lanced through the void, slicing illusions but missing the real hull by meters. Alarms wailed, a red strobe painting the bridge in bloody hues. One decoy shattered under fire, feedback jolting Jax's station. He cursed, yanking a panel open to expose sparking circuits. "They're adapting faster than I thought. Those bastards are using our own echoes against us." Elena stood, boots magnetized to the deck. "Mira, talk to me. Any weakness in their formation?" The scientist's face paled as she cross-referenced scans. "The nebula's interference. It's disrupting their cohesion on the flank. If we could draw them in deeper." A direct hit rocked the ship, inertial dampeners failing for a heartbeat. Elena stumbled, tasting blood from a split lip. Consoles sparked, and the view screen fractured into static. The Krell had breached the outer shields. The pod was exposed, its fragile skin glowing under targeting locks. Helm full burn into the clouds. Elena barked, her voice cutting through the chaos. The Endeavour surged forward, engines screaming as it plunged into the swirling gases. Visibility dropped to nothing, sensors haywire, but the humans pressed on, blind trust in momentum, in the grit that had carried them from a blue marble to the stars. Behind them, the Krell hesitated, their precise formations fracturing in the murk. For the first time, doubt rippled through their comms chatter, intercepted in fragments. Primitives, unpredictable. Elena allowed herself a grim smile as the ship shuddered deeper into the nebula's embrace. The plan had backfired, but adaptation was human nature. They weren't out yet, but the cosmos was learning. Captain Ilara Voss gripped the armrests of her command chair, the hum of the Endeavor's engines vibrating through the deck like a distant heartbeat. The view screen flickered with static, revealing glimpses of the asteroid field's jagged chaos. Boulders the size of city blocks tumbling in lazy orbits, lit by the faint glow of a dying star. Her crew, down to 3 after the ambush, moved with the quiet efficiency of people who'd stared down worse. "Scans are picking up movement," murmured Lieutenant Kai Ren from the sensor station, his fingers dancing over the console. Kai was the cautious one, always double-checking readings, his dark eyes narrowing behind wire-rimmed glasses that somehow survived every hull breach. "Not natural. Something's herding those rocks toward us." Ilara nodded, her jaw set. The Zarvian fleet had scattered them here, their sleek ships vanishing into hyperspace after crippling the Endeavor's shields. Diplomacy had failed spectacularly, human envoys laughed out of the Galactic Concord for daring to negotiate as equals. Now it was survival, and the aliens' parting gift was this trap, an automated minefield disguised as a debris cloud. "Options?" she asked, glancing at Dr. Mira Singh, who leaned against the bulkhead, arms crossed. Mira was the wit, her sarcasm a shield against the fear that gnawed at them all. She'd jury-rigged half the ship's systems from scrap, her hands still smudged with lubricant. Mira smirked, but it didn't reach her eyes. "We could try the ventral thrusters, nudge us through the gaps. But one wrong move and we're paced." Or. She trailed off, eyeing the engineering display. "That prototype gravitic pulse you insisted on bringing. Unstable as hell, but it might disrupt the herding pattern." Ilara waited. The pulse was human ingenuity at its rawest, a black market mod from Luna's underbelly, designed to bend gravity wells for faster-than-light jumps. Untested in combat. Risky. Kai. He shook his head. "The field's density is increasing. We've got maybe 10 minutes before we're boxed in." A low groan echoed through the hull as a fist-sized fragment pinged off the hull plating. Ilara's mind raced, piecing together fragments of intel from the Concord archives. The Zarvians favored subtlety, their tech woven into natural phenomena. This wasn't random, it was a net, closing slow. "Prep the pulse," she decided, unstrapping herself. "Mira, you're on it." "Kai, plot a vector, tight but keep us breathing room." The engineer pushed off the wall, grabbing a toolkit from under her station. "Aye, Cap. Just don't blame me if we end up in the next star system." As Mira vanished into the access hatch, Ilara turned back to the screen. The asteroids loomed larger now, their shadows stretching like claws. She remembered the Concord chamber, the alien delegates' dismissive hisses. Humans, primitives with their clunky ships and fragile bodies. No place at the table. Fine. They'd earned their seat the hard way. Alarms blared suddenly, red lights pulsing. "Incoming vector." Kai shouted. "They're accelerating the field, rocks shifting fast." Ilara's hands flew to the controls, firing lateral jets. The Endeavor shuddered, twisting away from a spinning monolith that grazed their port side, sparks flying from the impact. The ship bucked, gravity compensators whining. From below decks, Myra's voice crackled over the comm, "Pulse charging, 30 seconds. Hold her steady." Another boulder hurtled past, close enough to rattle the coffee mug chained to Ilara's console. She poured power into maneuvers, the ship dancing a deadly ballet amid the stone storm. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but her voice stayed even. "Kai, give me eyes on the herder." "Got it." Small drone cloaked about 2 clicks starboard. It's emitting low-frequency pulses, sinking the rocks. Ilara's lips curled. "Clever bastards. Mark it. We'll deal with that after." The deck trembled violently as the pulse fired. A ripple distorted the view screen, gravity warping the field like heat haze over pavement. Asteroids halted mid-tumble, then reversed, clumping toward the drone instead. It sparked, visible now, A spindly thing unraveling under its own redirected force. Direct hit. Kai whooped, pumping a fist. But triumph soured quick. The Endeavor listed, consoles flickering. Overload, Mira reported, climbing back up, face pale. The pulse fried our auxiliary power. We're blind on sensors and main drive sputtering. Ilara exhaled slowly, staring at the now clear but treacherous field. They'd escaped the immediate crush, but the cost lingered, a ship limping, crew exposed. The Zarvians would regroup soon, and without power, diplomacy's corpse was all they had left. Patch what you can, she said. We're not done yet. In the quiet that followed, the stars' weak light filtered through the cracks in their resolve, casting long shadows. They pressed on, humans in the void, turning abandonment into ammunition. Elena gripped the armrest of her command chair, the hum of the engines vibrating through the deck like a distant heartbeat. The view screen flickered with static, painting the bridge in erratic blue flashes. Outside, the debris field loomed, a graveyard of shattered hulls from the last skirmish, courtesy of the Krell Dominion's relentless patrols. Her fingers itched for the controls, but she held back, eyes locked on Mateus as he hunched over the console, sweat beading on his brow. Power surge in the auxiliary core, Mateus muttered, his voice tight, fingers dancing across the holographic interface. They're jamming us again. If we don't reroute soon, we'll be blind out here. He was the cautious one, always calculating odds, but today his wit had sharpened into something etched, like a blade held too long in the forge. Across from him, Kira adjusted her harness, her face a mask of focused calm. The xenobiologist-turned-reluctant fighter had joined them after the diplomatic channels went dark, humanity's final olive branch snapped by the Krell's unyielding demands for surrender. Blind is better than dead, she said, voice steady. The probe readings show their cruiser is circling back. We bought time with that decoy, but not much. Elena's mind raced through the fragments of their plan. The initial thrust into the nebula had been bold, use the ionized clouds to mask their signature, slip past the blockade, and reach the colony relay on Epsilon Prime. But the Krell's adaptive sensors had pierced the haze faster than expected, forcing an early abort. Now, adrift in the debris, their shields flickered like a candle in wind, and the oxygen recyclers whined under strain. One wrong move, and the void would claim them, leaving the colony isolated, starving without resupply. Options? Elena asked, keeping her tone even, though her pulse thrummed in her ears. Mateus glanced up, his eyes shadowed. We could vent the forward bays, create a chaff burst to scramble their locks. Risky, might overload the vents, leave us venting Atmo too. He paused, wiping his sleeve across his forehead. Or we improvise with the salvage. That derelict freighter fragment has intact grapples. Hook in, use its mass as a slingshot. Get us clear, but it'll shake us like a maraca. Kira leaned forward, scanning the probe feed. The freighter's got Krell markings. If we snag it, they might think it's one of theirs drifting. Buys us a window. Her fingers traced the screen, highlighting a weak point in the cruiser's patrol vector. She'd always been the observer, piecing together alien behaviors from scraps. But now her insights carried the weight of survival. Elena nodded, decision crystallizing. Grapples it is. Mateus, prep the arms. Kira, sync the probes to mimic a distress beacon, make it whine like a Krell emergency. She unstrapped, moving to the auxiliary station, her boots thudding softly against the grated floor. The bridge air tasted metallic, laced with the faint ozone of straining circuits. As Mateus initiated the maneuver, the ship shuddered, thrusters firing in short bursts to align with the freighter chunk, a hulking wedge of twisted alloy scarred by plasma burns. Elena watched the grapples extend on the secondary display, mechanical claws unfolding like predatory limbs. Contact. The jolt hit like a hammer, metal screeching as they latched on. Pulling now, Mateus announced, his voice rising with the strain. The view screen blurred as momentum built, the debris field whipping past in a storm of silent shards. Alarms blared, structural integrity dropping, the freighter's mass tugging unevenly. Then, a new ping cut through the din. Kira's eyes widened. Incoming hail. They're buying it, responding to the beacon. But her triumph faded as the readings updated. Wait. That's not relief. It's a tractor beam lock. They're reeling us in. Elena's stomach dropped. The slingshot had worked too well, drawing the cruiser like a moth to flame. The Krell, ever arrogant in their tech superiority, saw only salvage, not the trap within. But now hooked and hauling their ship was the bait. Cut the grapples. Elena barked, slamming the override. Mateus complied, but the release stuck, servos grinding in protest. The cruiser loomed larger on screen, its angular form blotting the stars, weapons bays glowing with lethal promise. Kira spun in her seat. We can't break free without ripping our hull. But if we time the vent just right, Elena met her gaze, the pieces falling into place. Human grit, born of too many corners backed into. Do it. Overload the chaff and ride the wave. As the orders flew, the bridge tensed, the weight of the gamble pressing down. One chance, or the cosmos would claim another lesson unlearned. Captain Ilara Voss gripped the armrests of her command chair, the hum of the Endurance's engines vibrating through the deck like a distant heartbeat. The view screen flickered with static-laced feeds from the forward sensors, painting the asteroid field in jagged grays and blacks. Her crew, Jax, the wiry engineer with a perpetual squint from years in engine bays, and Mira, the sharp-tongued navigator whose optimism had frayed like old wiring, huddled around the tactical console. They were down to 3 now, after the skirmish with the Krell patrol had claimed Lena's life in a hull breach that still haunted Ilara's dreams. Another cluster dead ahead, Mira said, her voice steady despite the sweat beading on her forehead. She tapped the holographic display, zooming in on a dense knot of rocks tumbling in lazy orbits. If we thread this, we might shake the last of their scouts. But it's tight, real tight. Jax snorted, wiping grease from his hands on his jumpsuit. Tight? That's one word for it. The Endurance isn't a damn needle. One wrong nudge and we're confetti. He glanced at Ilara, his eyes challenging but not defiant. He'd been the cautious one from the start, always patching hulls and rerouting power while the others pushed forward. Now, with the Krell fleet closing in from the outer rim, caution felt like a luxury they couldn't afford. Ilara leaned forward, studying the scan. The Krell, those hulking, crystalline aliens who dismissed human envoys as primitives, had blockaded the sector after humanity's abandonment of diplomacy. No more talks, no more treaties. Just ships vanishing into the void, colonies stripped bare. The Endurance carried the last prototype of the quantum disruptor, a human-engineered weapon that could shatter their shields from the inside out. If they delivered it to the Alliance outpost on Vega Prime, it might turn the tide. Fail, and the cosmos would grind humanity underfoot. Options. Ilara asked, her tone clipped. She was the brave one, the one who'd volunteered for this suicide run, but bravery didn't mean blindness. Mira traced a path on the hollow, a serpentine route weaving through the asteroids. We go manual. I plot, you fly. Jax reinforces the inertial dampers. Buy us some forgiveness if we graze. Jax shook his head, but he was already moving toward the access panel. Fine. But if we dent the hull again, I'm blaming your optimism. He pried open the grate, sparks flying as he yanked out a bundle of conduits. Tools clattered in his kit, and he worked with the grim efficiency of someone who'd lost too many friends to bad calls. Ilara nodded to Mira, who slid into the co-pilot's seat. The navigator's hands danced over the controls, plotting vectors with the precision of a surgeon. Engaging evasive pattern in 3, 2. The ship lurched as thrusters fired, hurling them into the field. Asteroids loomed like silent guardians, their surfaces pitted and scarred from eons of collisions. Ilara's fingers flew across the yoke, the Endurance banking sharply to avoid a boulder the size of a frigate. Alarms blared, a proximity warning as a chunk of ice-sheathed rock hurtled past, close enough to rattle the bulkheads. Port side clear. Mira shouted, her voice cutting through the din. But then the ship shuddered, a deep groan echoing from the engineering deck. Jax's voice crackled over the comm, dampers holding, barely. We've got a microfracture in the outer plating. Seal it or we vent Opmo on the next hit. Ilara gritted her teeth, sweat stinging her eyes. The Krell scout drone was still on their tail, a faint blip gaining ground through the chaos. She jinked right, the stars streaking into lines, then pulled up hard, threading between 2 spinning behemoths. One brushed the wing, metal screamed against stone, and the lights flickered. Mira cursed under her breath, recalculating. They're adapting, must have their own NAVAI predicting us. We need a wild card. In the back of Alara's mind, the prototype disruptor hummed in its secured bay, inert without the activation codes. But Jax had mentioned something earlier, a jury-rigged emitter he could repurpose from the cargo scanners. Risky, untested. Jax, she called into the comm, how long to hotwire that scanner into a decoy burst? Something to blind their sensors. A pause filled with the clank of tools. 5 minutes. Maybe less if I don't blow myself up. But it'll drain the auxiliary power, shields drop to 20%. Do it. Alara's decision hung in the air, heavy with the weight of what it cost. Lena would have argued for the safe route, but she was gone. This was adaptation, human grit distilled into action. The ship twisted through another gap, the asteroid field's heart a maelstrom of dust and debris that battered the hull like hail. Myra's plot held barely as the drone closed to firing range. Then Jax's voice, burst ready. Firing on your mark. Alara watched the blip on the rear sensors. Now. A pulse erupted from the Endurance's underbelly, not the disruptor's full fury but a crude echo. It washed over the field, scattering sensor ghosts like chaff in the wind. The drone veered, confused, slamming into an asteroid with a silent bloom of plasma. Silence fell in the cockpit, broken only by the settling creak of the ship. Mira exhaled, slumping back. We did it. The dim glow of the auxiliary lights cast long shadows across the engineering bay, where Jax hunched over the jury-rigged console, his fingers dancing across exposed circuits like a pianist in a storm. Sweat beaded on his forehead, not from the heat, though the failing life support was making the air thick and stale, but from the gnawing certainty that one wrong connection could turn their last hope into a fireball. Elena stood behind him, arms crossed, her jaw set in that unyielding line that had kept the crew alive through a dozen close calls. She didn't pace, pacing wasted energy and they had none to spare. Talk to me, Jax, she said, voice low but steady, cutting through the hum of straining vents. Is she holding? He didn't look up, just wiped his brow with the back of his hand, smearing grease across his skin. Holding? She's a miracle on life support, Cap. That plasma surge from the Krell ship's last volley fried half the relays, but I've got the auxiliary power shunted through the old cargo scanners. It'll give us thrust for another hour, maybe 2 if we baby her. Myra's voice crackled over the intercom from the bridge, laced with the caution that had saved them more than once. Hour's all we need if you can align the disruptor array. Sensors show the Krell Vanguard closing, 3 cruisers, weapons hot. They're not firing yet, but that's because they think we're dead in the water. Elena leaned in closer to the console, her eyes narrowing at the flickering schematic. The Krell had underestimated humans before, diplomacy's pretty words shattered by their first betrayal, an ambush that left human colonies in ruins. Now, with the fleet scattered and the Odyssey the last bastion, humility was the lesson the stars would learn, one calculated risk at a time. But risks had costs. The empty bunks in the crew quarters whispered of that truth. Align it, Elena ordered. And reroute the oxygen recyclers to the forward base. If we have to vent, I want the bridge breathable. Jax snorted, a wry twist to his lips as he yanked a wire free and spliced it with a makeshift clamp. Vent? You're planning to play chicken with those behemoths? Bold even for you. Not chicken. Improvisation. She clapped his shoulder, firm enough to ground him. We abandon talks because they don't listen to reason. Time they felt ours. The ship shuddered as another weak pulse from the Krell scanners washed over them, probing for vulnerabilities. Myra's update came sharp. They're hailing. Demanding surrender. Say if we power down they'll board peacefully. Elena barked a laugh, short and mirthless. Peacefully. After glassing New Terra? Patch me through. The comms hissed open, and the Krell commander's voice boomed in translated gutturals, all superiority and static. Human vessel, your resistance is futile. Yield, and your remnants may yet serve the collective. She leaned into the pickup, her tone ice over steel. Collective? We tried your collective once. It ended with our diplomats in vacuum. Power down your weapons or we'll show you what solo ingenuity looks like. Silence stretched, broken only by the creak of straining hull plates. Jax worked faster, his clever hands weaving the disruptor field into the ship's battered shields. A human hack, turning defense into a web of interference that no alien sim could predict. Then the Krell fired. Alarms wailed as the first energy lance grazed the Odyssey's flank, shearing off a sensor array in a spray of molten debris. Elena gripped the console, steadying Jax as the deck bucked. Evasive. Mira, spin us port, give Jax a window. The ship groaned into motion, thrusters firing in ragged bursts. Myra's voice held steady, copy. Holding pattern alpha. But they're adapting, second salvo incoming. Jax slammed the final connection home, the console sparking once before stabilizing. Arrays live. Shields modulating, it'll scramble their targeting for 30 seconds. Make it count. Elena nodded, strapping into the auxiliary station. All hands brace. We're not yielding. We're teaching. The disruptor hummed to life, invisible ripples distorting the void around them. The Krell's next shots veered wild, one slamming into their own vanguard ship in a bloom of fire. Confusion rippled through the enemy formation, their vaunted coordination fracturing under the unexpected jam. But triumph was fleeting. As the field flickered, power reserves dipping perilously low, a Krell boarding pod latched onto their hull with a metallic screech, breaching the midsection. Red lights flashed, hull integrity compromised. Intruders, Mira reported, urgency creeping in. 2 squads armed heavy. Sealing bulkheads, but they'll reach engineering in minutes. Elena unstrapped, grabbing a pulse rifle from the wall mount. Her brave resolve hardened into action, eyes meeting Jax's. Hold the engine room. I'll buy you time to recharge. He nodded, with giving way to grit as he hefted a welding torch like a club. Don't make it a long buy, Cap. We've got a cosmos to humble. She moved, rifle raised, the corridor ahead narrowing to a gauntlet of flickering emergency lights and the distant echo of alien boots. The cost mounted, another scar on the Odyssey, another test of their camaraderie, but in the face of it humans pressed on, unbowed. Elena gripped the railing of the observation deck, her knuckles white against the cold metal. The stars blurred past the viewport as the Endurance hurtled through the void, engines straining under the improvised overclock Jax had jury-rigged. Below them, the asteroid belt loomed like a graveyard of shattered worlds, remnants of the Krotha's orbital bombardment. Her breath fogged the glass, she wiped it away, staring at the faint glow of human outposts flickering like dying embers. Captain, Myra's voice crackled over the comm, steady but edged with fatigue. Scans confirm it, the Kroth cruiser is closing. They've adapted to our decoy flares. Whatever ghost signal we planted in their NAV system, it's degrading fast. Elena nodded, though Mira couldn't see it. The scientist had been the cautious one from the start, always double-checking protocols while Jax cracked jokes to lighten the load. Now, with their fleet reduced to this lone frigate and a handful of salvage drones, caution felt like a luxury. How long? 20 minutes, tops. Their weapons are powering up. If we don't lose them in the belt, we're sitting ducks. Jax burst into the deck, wiping grease from his hands on his jumpsuit. His usual smirk was gone, replaced by a grim set to his jaw. Ducks. More like fried poultry. The auxiliary thrusters are holding, but if we push into that debris field we risk hull breaches. One wrong maneuver and we're confetti. Elena turned, meeting his eyes. He'd been the heart of their crew, the witty engineer whose clever hacks had kept them alive through 3 ambushes. But this time his ingenuity had hit a wall. Their last plan, hijacking a Kroth probe to broadcast false coordinates, had backfired spectacularly. The aliens, those towering, chitin-plated overlords who dismissed human primitives in every diplomatic overture, had traced the signal right back to them. Now the cosmos was learning that humans didn't roll over easily. We go in, Elena said, her voice firm. It's our only shot. Mira, plot a slalom through the densest clusters. Jax, arm the kinetic launchers, load them with those asteroid shards we mined. Jax hesitated, then nodded, clapping her shoulder. Aye, Cap. Let's make M regret ever ignoring our envoys. The ship shuddered as they dove into the belt, rocks the size of shuttles whipping past. Alarms blared, proximity warnings painting the console in red. Elena strapped into the command chair, fingers flying over controls. A massive boulder loomed ahead, its surface pocked and spinning lazily. She yanked the yoke, the endurance banking hard, gravity compensators whining. Impact in 10. Mira shouted from engineering. Adjusting inertial dampeners, hold on. The ship grazed the rock, sparks erupting along the hull. Elena's teeth rattled, but they cleared it. Behind them, the Kroth cruiser fired. A lance of plasma that vaporized a nearby asteroid in a bloom of superheated gas. The shockwave buffeted them, systems flickering. They're gaining, Jax reported, his voice tight over the intercom. That big one's got gravity wells deployed, pulling us off course. Elena's mind raced. The Kroth tech was superior, their ships grown from bioengineered hives that self-repaired mid-battle. Humans had begged for alliances, offered tech trades, but the aliens saw them as vermin infesting their galaxy. Diplomacy abandoned, humanity fought with grit and scrap. Divert power to forward shields, she ordered. Mira, can we overload their wells? Reverse the polarity on our emitters, like that time on Rigel? A pause, then Myra's response, laced with reluctant hope. It's a long shot. Their systems are shielded against EMPs, but if we sink the drones... Do it. Elena punched the comm, all hands brace for evasive. We're turning their trap into ours. Jax hooped from below decks, the sound cutting through the tension. Now you're talking. Rerouting now, gimme 30 seconds. The belt closed in, debris pinging off the hull like hail. The Kroth ship loomed on sensors, a predatory shadow. Elena watched the distance shrink, heart pounding. One drone detached, then another streaking toward the enemy like kamikaze bees. Contact. The overload hit, a cascade of feedback that lit the void in electric blue. The Kroth cruiser listed, gravity fields collapsing in a ripple that yanked asteroids toward it. Rocks hammered their hull, cracks spiderwebbing across the bioarmor. Direct hits. Jax yelled. They're reeling, buying us time. But victory soured fast. A secondary explosion rocked the Endurance, their own drone feedback looping back. Consoles sparked, lights dimmed. Elena's chair jolted as a bulkhead groaned. Engineering breach. Myra's cry was sharp. Lost containment on the core, evac protocols. Elena unstrapped, grabbing her sidearm. The cost was here, tangible. The hum of life support faltering, the acrid smell of smoke seeping through vents. They were alive, but the ship was dying. As escape pods launched into the belt's chaos, she glimpsed the Kroth vessel drifting, humbled for the first time by human fire. In the pod's dim glow, Jax patched a wound on Myra's arm, his hand steady despite the shake in his voice. We got him good, but home's a long way off. Elena stared out at the stars, the weight of their gambit settling. The cosmos had laughed at human pleas, now it bled with them. But survival demanded more than one win. They had Elena grip the console edge as the Vanguard, as hull shuddered under another plasma barrage. The bridge lights flickered, casting jagged shadows across Jax's sweat-slicked face. He jabbed at the auxiliary controls, rerouting power from non-essentials. Life support in the lower decks took the hit, but it bought them seconds. Shields at 20%, he muttered, voice steady despite the chaos. That Krell cruiser is chewing us up like yesterday's rations. Keep us evasive, Elena ordered, her eyes locked on the tactical display. The nebulous swirling gases hid their position for now, but the Krell hunters were closing in, their sensor arrays piercing the haze like predatory eyes. She'd led her crew through worse, abandoned colonies, diplomatic breakdowns that turned to skirmishes, but this felt different. The galaxy had written off humanity's pleas for alliance. Now, with the Vanguard as the last human ship in this sector, failure meant erasure. Not just for them but for the fragile outposts back home. Mira, the xenobiologist turned reluctant gunner, swiveled in her chair. Her fingers danced over the targeting array, firing a spread of microtorpedoes into the fog. One connected, blooming a silent orange flare on the sensors. Got a glancing hit on their flank, she said, a rare spark of triumph in her cautious tone. But her optimism faded quick. The Krell ship's signature barely wavered, its regenerative armor knitting back together. They're adapting. Our warheads aren't phasing them. Jax snorted, wiping grime from his brow. Adapting? That's our job. He patched into the engineering feeds, his mind racing through half-remembered mods from the Academy days. Humans weren't built for the endless tech arms race the aliens played. They scrapped, they improvised. Elena, give me the green light on the jury rig. We're venting the auxiliary plasma coils into the exhaust vents, turn our tail into a decoy flare. She hesitated, calculating the risks. One wrong valve and they'd cook their own engines. But the alternative was drifting dead in the nebula, picked apart by the Krell's boarding drones. Do it. Mira, cover him. The ship groaned as Jax worked, his hands a blur over the panels. Alarms blared, overheat warnings, structural stress. But he tuned them out, focusing on the rhythmic pulse of the coils. A sharp jolt rocked the deck, and for a heart-stopping moment, Elena thought it had backfired. Then, the rear scanners lit up, a blazing trail of superheated gas mimicking a failing drive signature, drawing the Krell cruiser like a moth to flame. They're biting, Mira whispered, her voice tight with held breath. The enemy ship veered, weapons locking onto the Phantom. Elena punched the thrusters, slipping the Vanguard into a tighter evasion pattern, the nebulous tendrils brushing their hull like ghostly fingers. But the Krell weren't fools. As their cruiser closed on the decoy, a secondary pod detached, drones, sleek and deadly, fanning out to flank. One clipped their port side, shearing off a sensor array in a spray of sparks. The bridge tilted, consoles sparking, and Jax cursed as his station shorted. Lost lateral control. We're blind on that side. Elena's mind whirred. The plan had bought time, but the drones were multiplying the threat, their coordinated strikes probing for weaknesses. She recalled the briefings. Krell's psychology prized dominance, overwhelming force. Humans? They thrived on the unexpected. Jax, can you spoof their comms? Make it look like we're hailing surrender? He grinned through the pain of a minor burn on his hand. Surrender? To those tentacled egomaniacs? Hell yes. Patching into the subspace array, he wove a crude signal, distorted human voices pleading for mercy, laced with falsified IFF codes. It was theater, pure and desperate, but the drones hesitated, their algorithms parsing the surrender protocol. Mira lined up shots on the lead drone, her breaths measured. Incoming on starboard, evade. Elena yanked the yoke, the ship protesting with a metallic screech. The drone exploded in a satisfying burst, but two more pressed the attack, their beams grazing the shields. In the lull, Jax's hack took hold. The Krell cruiser, sensing vulnerability, powered down its main guns to deploy more boarders, arrogance, assuming the humans broken. Elena seized it. All ahead, full burn. Mira, target their exposed bays. The Vanguard surged forward, engines howling. Torpedoes lanced out, slipping past the drones to slam into the cruiser's underbelly. Explosions rippled across its hull, venting atmosphere into the void. The Krell ship listed, its pursuit faltering as secondary detonations chained through the bays. But victory wasn't clean. A final drone rammed their aft section, buckling a bulkhead. Alarms wailed, hull breach in engineering. Jax was already moving, grabbing a sealant kit. I'll seal it. Get us out of here. Elena nodded, steering into the nebula's depths. The cost lingered. Damaged drives meant limping home, and the Krell would regroup. Yet as the ship steadied, Myra's quiet "we did it" hung in the air, a testament to grit over gadgets, to human resolve forcing the stars to blink first. The cosmos, vast and unforgiving, had tasted humility today. The bridge hummed with the low thrum of failing systems, red emergency lights casting jagged shadows across the consoles. Captain Elena gripped the armrests of her chair, her knuckles white against the worn leather. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but her voice cut through the alarms like a knife. Status, Jax. Give me something I can use. Jax hunched over the engineering panel, his fingers flying across the holographic display, rerouting power from non-essentials. The witty edge in his usual banter had dulled to grim focus. He'd cracked jokes earlier about the alien ship's shields being thicker than a politician's skull, but now his eyes burned with the strain of keeping their battered frigate, the Relentless, in one piece. Shields at 23%, Cap. That last plasma volley from the Krell destroyer fried our forward arrays. We've got auxiliary thrusters online, but if they close to knife range, we're done. Lieutenant Marco paced behind them, his cautious nature fraying at the edges. He was the planner, the one who mapped every contingency, but the Krell's relentless pursuit had shredded their escape vectors. We should have flanked earlier, like I said. Now they're herding us toward the nebula. One wrong move and we're ionized mist. His hand hovered near the comms, itching to call for retreat, but Elena's glare silenced him. They weren't running, not with the colony's last evac shuttle still limping behind them, carrying the survivors of New Horizon. The view screen flickered, showing the Krell destroyer's hulking form. A behemoth of spiked alloy and glowing energy vents, its weapons pods swiveling like predatory eyes. The aliens had dismissed humanity's pleas for parley weeks ago, their transmissions a cold litany of dominance. Inferior species yield or perish. But Elena's crew had turned that arrogance into fuel. They jury-rigged a mining drone into a decoy bomb earlier, buying this sliver of time, but the Krell adapted fast, too fast. They're locking quantum torpedoes, Marco warned, his voice tight. Impact in 30 seconds. Elena leaned forward, her mind racing through the fragments of their plan. The nebula ahead was a churning soup of ionized gas and magnetic storms, a graveyard for unwary ships. The Krell, with their superior sensors, would skirt it easily. But humans? They'd dive in blind if it meant survival. Jax, vent the plasma coils into the nacelles. Overload the exhaust like we did on Vega Prime. Jax paused, his face paling under the strobing lights. That'll cook our engines for good. We might not make it out. Better than not making it at all. Elena's tone brooked no argument. She was the brave one, the anchor, the woman who'd stared down boarding parties with nothing but a pulse rifle and grit. Marco stopped pacing, nodding once, his caution yielding to the fire in her eyes. Jax slammed the override. Alarms wailed as superheated plasma surged through the vents, turning the relentless exhaust into a blazing comet tail. The ship lurched, inertial dampeners straining, but the maneuver worked. The Krell's targeting systems glitched, torpedoes veering wildly into the void. They plunged into the nebula. Colors warped across the hull, electromagnetic interference scrambling every readout. Elena felt the deck vibrate under her boots, the air growing thick with ozone. Keep her steady. Marco, eyes on the shuttle's beacon. In the chaos, a new ping lit the auxiliary screen. The Krell ship following, its mass distorting the gas clouds like a shark through fog. They'd taken the bait, overconfident in their armor. But as the Relentless twisted through a magnetic eddy, a shudder ripped through the frame. Jax cursed. Beside her, Engineer Raj Patel hunched over the auxiliary console, his fingers a blur across the holographic interface. Shields at 12%, he muttered, voice steady despite the chaos. One more hit and we're venting atmosphere. Across from them, Lieutenant Kira Novak scanned the tactical display, her sharp eyes narrowing at the swarm of Krell interceptors closing in. The alien ships darted like predatory insects, their plasma lances carving glowing scars across the void. Humanity's diplomatic overtures had crumbled weeks ago, ignored pleas turning to outright aggression when the Krell claimed the neutral sector as their divine right. Now, with the Reliant as the last human vessel in the system, the stakes weren't just survival, they were a testament to what humans could endure. They're flanking us, Kira said, her tone clipped, no room for panic. She was the cautious one, always calculating odds, but today her caution fueled precision. Recommend evasive pattern delta. Use the asteroid field's gravity wells to slingshot. Ilara nodded, her brave resolve shining through in the way she didn't hesitate. Do it. Raj, reroute power to maneuvering thrusters. We dance or we die. The ship lurched as Raj punched the commands, the Reliance frame groaning under the strain. Alarms blared, red lights painting the bridge in bloody hues. Ilara felt the pull in her gut, the inertial dampeners struggling to compensate. Outside, the asteroid field loomed, a jagged graveyard of rock tumbling through the stars, remnants of some ancient cataclysm. It was their only cover, the one edge humans had over the Krell's superior firepower. Ingenuity born of desperation. The first interceptor volley skimmed past, shattering a boulder into glittering debris that peppered the hull like hail. Kira whooped softly, a rare crack in her composure. Got to. Their sensors can't track us through the dust cloud. But the Krell adapted quickly, their lead cruiser broadcasting a psychic pulse that rippled through the comms. A demand for surrender, laced with the arrogance of a species that had never known true loss. Ilara's jaw tightened. Diplomacy had failed because the cosmos saw humans as primitives, fodder for expansion. Today they'd learn otherwise. Raj, how's the jury rig? Ilara asked, glancing at the makeshift weapon they'd cobbled together from salvaged mining drones and the ship's fusion core. It wasn't elegant, but human grit didn't need polish. Online, he replied, wiping grease from his brow. Firing solution locked. It'll punch a hole through their shields, but it'll fry our auxiliary systems. We won't have FTL for hours after. Hours in this system meant death with reinforcements inbound. But retreat wasn't an option. The Reliant carried the last data core of human colonies, proof of their claim to the stars. Lose it, and humanity's foothold crumbled. Fire, Ilara ordered. The weapon discharged with a shudder that rattled teeth, a beam of modulated plasma lancing through the field, vaporizing 3 interceptors in a cascade of fire. The Krell cruiser veered, its hull blooming with secondary explosions. Cheers erupted on the bridge, but Ilara silenced them with a raised hand. They're not done. Kira, plot our exit vector. As the Reliant broke free, weaving through the thinning debris, the Krell fleet faltered. Their psychic broadcast shifted, confusion, then a grudging retreat. The cosmos had tasted humility, forced to yield not by overwhelming might, but by the unyielding bond of a crew that refused to break. Hours later, limping toward the jump point, Ilara stared at the stars. The victory was Pyrrhic. Repairs would take months, and the data core's transmission had burned out half their arrays. Raj slumped in his seat, exhausted but grinning. We made it, Cap. They won't forget that. Kira nodded, her caution easing into quiet pride. And neither will we. But next time we come prepared. Ilara allowed herself a small smile. Humanity's path forward was scarred, but unbroken, a reminder that diplomacy was just words, while resolve carved empires. The Reliant jumped, leaving the humbled Krell to their shadows.